Sarah Martinez had always been different from other girls in her small Texas town. While her classmates spent weekends at the mall or gossiping about boys, she was running 5-mile circuits around the local park or practicing push-ups in her backyard. Her father, a retired Marine, had instilled in her a discipline that most teenagers never experienced. When she announced her intention to join the Navy at 17, nobody in her family was surprised. The decision hadn't come easily. Sarah had watched her older brother struggle with PTSD after returning from Afghanistan, and she'd seen how military life could break even the strongest people. But something deep inside her called to serve, to push herself beyond what anyone thought possible. Her mother cried the day she left for boot camp, but her father's proud smile gave her the strength to walk through those gates at Great Lakes Naval Station. Boot camp was everything she'd expected, and worse. The physical demands pushed her body to its limits. But Sarah thrived under pressure. She excelled in every fitness test, mastered navigation skills faster than most of her peers, and showed natural leadership abilities that caught her instructor's attention. While other recruits complained about the harsh treatment and endless drills, Sarah embraced every challenge as an opportunity to prove herself. Her drill instructor, Petty Officer Williams, was a tough woman who'd served 3 deployments and had zero tolerance for weakness. She seemed to take special interest in Sarah, pushing her harder than the others, demanding perfection in every movement. At first, Sarah thought it was unfair treatment, but she gradually realized Williams was preparing her for something greater. During the final weeks of boot camp, Williams pulled Sarah aside after a particularly grueling training exercise. The older woman's weathered face showed a hint of something Sarah had never seen before: respect. Williams told her about specialized programs within the Navy, opportunities for those willing to push beyond conventional limits. She mentioned programs that most people didn't even know existed, roles where extraordinary individuals could make a real difference. Sarah's curiosity was immediately sparked. She'd always known she wanted more than a standard Navy career, though she hadn't been sure what that might look like. Williams explained that there were selection processes for various elite units, but warned that the path would be harder than anything she'd experienced so far. The failure rate was astronomical, and even attempting these programs would mark her as someone who'd aimed higher than most people dared. The conversation planted a seed that grew stronger each day. Sarah began researching different Navy specializations, learning about combat roles that few women had ever attempted. She discovered programs that demanded not just physical excellence but mental toughness that bordered on superhuman. The more she learned, the more determined she became to test her limits. After graduating boot camp with honors, Sarah was assigned to her first duty station aboard a destroyer based in Norfolk. The ship was impressive, but life as a regular sailor felt constraining after the intensity of her training. She performed her duties flawlessly, earning commendations from her supervisors, but her mind was constantly focused on greater challenges ahead. During off-duty hours, Sarah maintained the intense fitness regimen she'd developed in boot camp. While other sailors relaxed or explored the local nightlife, she was in the gym or running along the waterfront. Her commitment didn't go unnoticed by her shipmates, some of whom began asking about her goals. When she mentioned her interest in special operations, reactions ranged from supportive to skeptical. One evening, while Sarah was completing a particularly demanding workout routine on deck, she was approached by a senior petty officer she'd only seen from a distance. The man introduced himself as Rodriguez and mentioned that he'd been watching her training habits with interest. His questions were probing but respectful, focusing on her motivations and long-term aspirations. Rodriguez had an intensity about him that reminded Sarah of her drill instructor Williams. His questions went beyond surface-level curiosity, delving into her mental preparation and understanding of what elite service really meant. He asked about her family's military background, her personal reasons for pushing herself so hard, and her willingness to sacrifice comfort for excellence. The conversation continued over several weeks, always during informal moments when they happened to cross paths. Rodriguez never directly stated his background, but Sarah began to suspect he had experience with special operations himself. His knowledge of training methodologies and understanding of the selection processes seemed too detailed for casual observation. Eventually, Rodriguez mentioned an upcoming opportunity that might interest someone with Sarah's dedication and abilities. He explained that certain units periodically held information sessions for potential candidates, though he warned that even attending such sessions required demonstrated commitment and exceptional performance records. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as Rodriguez described the process. He emphasized that these weren't regular Navy programs, but rather specialized units with their own cultures and standards. The training would be unlike anything in conventional military service, designed to identify individuals capable of operating in the most demanding environments imaginable. The timing seemed perfect. Sarah had been at her current assignment long enough to establish herself as a reliable and exceptional sailor, but not so long that transferring would be complicated. Her performance evaluations were outstanding, and she built relationships with supervisors who would likely support her pursuing advanced opportunities. Rodriguez provided her with specific information about application procedures and timeline. He stressed that the process would begin with extensive vetting, including psychological evaluations and background investigations that went far beyond standard military clearance procedures. Even being considered for selection was an achievement that few sailors ever reached. Sarah spent hours researching everything she could find about Navy special operations. The information available to the general public was limited, but she pieced together enough details to understand the magnitude of what she was considering. These weren't just challenging assignments, but rather career paths that would fundamentally change who she was as a person and a sailor. Her determination only grew stronger as she learned more about the demands and expectations. Sarah had always felt most alive when facing difficult challenges, and this represented the ultimate test of everything she'd been preparing for. She began modifying her training routine to better prepare for the specific physical and mental challenges she expected to encounter. The application process required extensive documentation of her military service, personal background, and motivations. Sarah spent weeks crafting responses that honestly represented her commitment while demonstrating the kind of analytical thinking these programs valued. Every word was carefully considered, as she knew this paperwork would be her first impression on evaluators. When she finally submitted her application, Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness unlike anything she'd experienced before. This wasn't just another military assignment, but rather a chance to join an elite community that operated at the highest levels of professional excellence. The waiting period would test her patience as much as any physical challenge. Weeks passed without any communication about her application status. Sarah continued her regular duties while maintaining her intensive training schedule, trying to stay focused on current responsibilities while her mind constantly wandered to the possibilities ahead. She'd committed herself to a path that would demand everything she had to give and more. The call finally came on a Tuesday morning while Sarah was reviewing maintenance reports in her small shipboard office. The voice on the other end was professional but friendly, explaining that her application had been reviewed favorably and that she'd been selected to attend an evaluation weekend at a facility she'd never heard of before. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she wrote down the reporting instructions and required items to bring. This was really happening. After months of preparation and anticipation, she was going to get her chance to prove herself worthy of joining the Navy's most elite units. The evaluation would determine whether all her training and sacrifice had prepared her for the next level of service. The facility was located several hours from her base, requiring her to request special liberty that raised questions from her immediate supervisors. Sarah kept her explanations vague, mentioning only that she was pursuing advanced training opportunities. Most of her colleagues assumed she was applying for some kind of technical school or leadership